The ATF's illegal registry was used to track down the exact owner and address of President Trump's would-be assassin. Today, we're going to break down why this isn't such a good thing and how to argue against those who cite this example as reason why ATF should be allowed to have a registry. Hey guys, I'm Tiffany, and you're watching One in the Chamber, the show that helps you become a better gun rights activist. But before I get into this video, let me take a second to tell you about GOA's first convention, Goals. The Gun Owners Advocacy and Leadership Summit will be held August 17th through 18th in Knoxville, Tennessee. Come see your favorite companies, hear the top voices from the Second Amendment community, and more. The best part? It's free for GOA members, and there are activities for the entire family, so I'll see you there. Okay, now on to the video. It's been a little while since the attempted assassination of President Trump. As more details emerge about the shooter and the massive security failures, something has come to light that should alarm gun owners. To identify the shooter, the ATF ran what's called a trace on the serial number, make, and model of the firearm used at the scene. ATF contacted their Martinsburg, West Virginia office, which houses the National Tracing Center, or NTC. The National Tracing Center, as we've stated many times before on this channel, houses a massive registry of guns and gun owners compiled through harvesting, scanning, and digitizing out-of-business records from federal firearms licensees. See, when you buy a gun, you have to fill out a background check form, also known as Form 4473, and the Biden administration made it so that those records are kept permanently. Now, when a gun shop goes out of business, they must turn over all their background check forms to the ATF. The ATF then digitizes those forms and puts them in a massive centralized database. The ATF claims that this doesn't constitute a registry and therefore isn't a violation of federal law. But this is incorrect. Over 2 years ago, we, with the help of Representative Michael Cloud, confirmed that ATF did in fact have a searchable digital database with almost 1 billion records. And in the 2 years since our reporting, ATF has continued to grow this database by about 50 million records per year. This is a blatant violation of the Firearms Owners Protection Act, which has been federal law since the 1980s. But as we know, ATF doesn't think that the law applies to them. Here's what FOPA says. No such rule or regulation prescribed after the date of the enactment of the Firearms Owners Protection Act may require that records required to be maintained under this chapter or any portion of the contents of such records be recorded at or transferred to a facility owned, managed, or controlled by the United States or any state or any political subdivision thereof, nor that any system of registration of firearms, firearms owners, or firearms transactions or dispositions be established. If ATF is prevented by law of having a searchable database of guns and gun owners, how is it possible that they comb through 1 billion records in 30 minutes to find the owner of the firearm? Well, it isn't. Back when FOPA passed, ATF was only allowed to keep paper records by law. Now, ATF digitizes them into a searchable format, but that totally violates the law. But oftentimes, the anti-gunners will gaslight gun owners and pretend like this isn't a registry. One time, GOA got fact-checked and censored on social media by USA Today in this way. USA Today reported that records are not stored in a searchable database or a format consistent with the registry as GOA claimed. In that same article, a bureaucrat was quoted saying, ATF does not maintain a federal gun registry for firearms that fall under the Gun Control Act, and none of the records ATF maintains relating to those firearms may be used to create such a registry. More recently, CNN tried to say this ATF trace was done with a paper record system. Federal law enforcement used a Byzantine paper record system to track down decade-old gun sale records. But you need to know that what CNN and USA Today said is actually false. The system is totally digitized and searchable. We use our report on the searchability of ATF's illegal gun registry to point this out when the Washington Post reached out to GOA. The reporter did some digging and proved it was a digital record search. Listen to this. A West Virginia ATF employee searched the serial number in the ATF computer system, which found the licensed dealer that sold that firearm. The weapon was purchased at a now-closed gun store by a man who lives in Bethel Park, Pennsylvania, about an hour from the rally site. Because the business was no longer operating, the ATF's West Virginia facility had the federal form the buyer completed. That sounds exactly like a searchable database of guns and gun owners. We FOIA'd ATF. This is exactly what the ATF search bars look like. And here's an example of the kinds of search results they get. They search for a gun and it returns a PDF and tells them exactly what page on the PDF to check to find your name, your address, and even your social security number. Again, this info flies in the face of the denials of a registry from ATF Director Stephen Dettelbach.
What is the latest record count for ATF's illegal digital searchable national gun registry?
0. We obey the law. It is not an illegal registry. We do not search in the method that you're suggesting. And we cannot.
If the only thing that can't be searched is the gun owner's name, that's still a registry, which is illegal. Also, all it would take is a little recoding to turn this trace system into a completely searchable database. In fact, ATF software is already capable of handwriting recognition. It's possible that just opening ATF's database of PDFs in regular Adobe Acrobat could make them fully searchable by name, which would be very helpful for a tyrannical administration wanting to initiate gun confiscation. But there's another, more sinister reason that the Washington Post and others in the corporate media are reporting on this story. They know that this incident could be interpreted as shining a positive light on ATF's illegal registry. They also know that those who support the Second Amendment are aware and opposed to this blatant violation of their rights. Just look at how they call out the opposition in the headline. They're basically saying, hey, look at this useful thing that these people are opposed to. Well, I'm going to go over some useful counter-arguments that you can use when talking to bootlickers like the writer of this Washington Post article. First, as we've said, this practice by ATF is prohibited by federal law. ATF was not allowed to create a registry, and yet that's exactly what they did when they digitized records in the 90s and early 2000s, and it's absolutely what the Biden administration did when they made background check forms into permanent gun registration records. Second, ATF's illegal registry does nothing to stop crime. Take the Trump shooter, for instance. He still committed the act. Regardless of the registry, gun registration won't stop a single criminal from committing a single crime. Even historically, gun registration systems have absolutely failed to help solve crimes. During the Heller 2 case, GOA spokesman and plaintiff Dick Heller, during the second major fight to restore his rights from the infringement by the District of Columbia, it was revealed that the police aren't using the registration records to solve crimes. Lieutenant Shelton cannot recall any specific instance where registration records were used to determine who committed a crime, except for possession offenses. Also, a registry maintained by the government of Honolulu, Hawaii, also failed to help solve even a single crime. Honolulu Police Chief Lee Donahue told the State Senate Committee in 2000 that he could not point to any crimes that had been solved by registration, and he estimated that his officers spent over 50,000 hours each year on registering guns. It would seem then that neither these cities nor ATF's gun registries are primarily useful for law enforcement purposes. Gun registries are, however, incredibly useful at forcing law-abiding citizens to comply with gun control laws. Third, even if somehow this illegal gun registry could in fact stop crime, that doesn't mean that it supersedes your rights. For example, the intelligence community could stop crime by placing microphones in every room of every house in the country. But they're prevented from doing that because it violates your Fourth Amendment rights. So why is it okay when it comes to the Second Amendment? And lastly, ATF can't prove that the existence of this registry stops crime at all. In fact, they are unable to provide any statistics on the rates of solved crimes that use the National Tracing Center. Maybe this is why only 50% of police departments nationwide even use the NTC.
And last week, you wrote back to a further request that said the NTC cannot determine the number of prosecutions resulted from completing crime gun trace requests. So can you tell me what percentage of local law enforcement agencies use the NTC to trace crimes?
So with respect to the percentage that are currently using, which I think I talk to people about trying to increase it. It's free information in
about
active
half,
criminal.
right?
It's around 50%,
Right.
give or take.
So if half of the country's local and state law enforcement isn't using the NTC, then what's the purpose of it other than to create an unlawful registry if there's no way to determine that they're contributing to successful prosecution?
But 52 members of Congress asked ATF how helpful these records are to solve violent crimes. And do you know what the ATF said? They said the agency has no ability to determine the successful prosecution of hundreds of thousands of crime gun traces it completes annually, nor does it have any way to link a trace for a specific prosecution for a particular year. Yeah, right. We have to keep a billion record gun registry because it's an essential law enforcement tool that half of law enforcement doesn't even use, and that we can't even prove helps solve crimes. I'm not exactly buying that, and you shouldn't either. So what can be done about this blatantly illegal gun registry? Well, we helped Congressman Michael Cloud write a bill to delete this registry and certify its destruction. Now, we're working in Congress with Representatives Michael Cloud and Andrew Clyde to bring forward an amendment to the ATF funding bill that would completely put an end to this tyrannical overreach by the ATF. How so? Well, by defunding the registry. And currently, that amendment was just added to the Justice Department's funding bill. We made a video on it, which we'll link in the description for those of you who are interested. So there you have it. ATF's illegal registry can be repealed, but we need your help. Call your representatives and tell them to support this amendment. Anyways, that's it for today. I can't wait to see you all at Goals. I'll see you guys next time.